Here's what I want to say about Trudeau's emergency powers press conference. Now, I want to be very careful when I say this, okay? I want to be very careful when I say this. As you know, my regular audience, I'm a big supporter of the LGBTQ community. So I'm going to say something that if you heard it in the wrong context would sound like I was making fun of the LGBTQ community, which I'm not, right? So that's not what's going to happen. But in terms of looking at our politicians, how they present themselves is part of the story. Would you agree? That the way we receive the message from our politicians is part of the story, in addition to what the message itself is. When I watch Trudeau's press conference, I see somebody, and again, this is not a criticism. This is an observation. The observation is he looks like he's transitioning. Did anybody else see it? He looks like he's transitioning. Now, some of you are saying that, I'm seeing in the comments, he was acting gay. And I want to make it very clear here to all of you that none of this should be construed as anti-anybody. This is simply an observation, which because he's a leader, it matters how we receive him and how we process it, right? But there's something about his haircut which suggests he's growing it out. Because who would go on TV with that haircut unless it was part of a larger strategy? Did you see his haircut? I mean, it was way beyond, the normal haircut. I mean, it looked like he's growing it out. And he was talking with let's say, a mannerism which I had not heard before. This sounded different. Did he not sound different? As in more feminine? And again, that's not a criticism. It's an observation. And there's no hyperbole here. I'm saying that there was something about his presentation which strongly suggested to me, and it could be because the news has so much news about, trans issues, that maybe I'm just primed to see it or something, but he looked like he was transitioning. And it was very distracting. And again, I want to be very clear. That's not a criticism, because if he is transitioning, that's his business, not mine. But it changes how you receive the message, doesn't it? And whether you looked at it and thought, well, he's simply not acting very testosterone-y, that has an effect on you, how you process it. But to me, it looked like somebody who knew his political life was over. How many also picked that up? And again, this is just so subjective. We're just reading speculation, reading his mind. None of this is real. It's just how we feel about it. And in a political context, how you feel about it is kind of all that matters. So I think it's fair game. How I felt about it is it looked like a leader who had completely lost it. Just completely lost it. And knew it. And knew that his game was over, basically. And I think he's doing the best he can to try to act tough. But he spent so much time not being tough that I just don't know if he could pull it off. Yeah, he didn't pull it off at all. So that was interesting. I loved Donald Trump's tweet about this. As Prime Minister Trudeau was acting somewhat authoritarian with his emergency powers, and he sounded a little like Mussolini, but Donald Trump Jr. tweets it with a different spelling. The moose part is spelled like a moose, the Canadian moose. So he's Mussolini. Pretty good, pretty good. It doesn't translate into verbal, but if you saw it in writing, you'd be laughing right now. So I think it's a pretty big deal that that in Washington, D.C., they're dropping mandates, because Washington, D.C. was being targeted by truckers, wasn't it? Can you do me a fact check on this? So aren't we a little bit surprised that Washington, D.C. dropped the mandates already? And was Washington, D.C. not targeted for the truckers? And did they do that was the point to get to make sure there was no trucker insurrection? So I don't know if those are related or not, or just the timing worked like that. But to me, the timing looks a little bit interesting. Canada has just removed all civil liberties, not worth a comment. Well, here's my comment on, I did talk about Trudeau. I think that Canada is in good shape. So I'm liking what I'm seeing in Canada. I believe that the great clawback is underway, clawing back our rights around the world, not just the U.S., and that the truckers are going to get what they want, I think, in the long run. But it might require removing their government first. So I do think that the truckers took out the Trudeau government. Do you agree? I think Trudeau's done. I mean, it's hard for me to read the room in Canada, but from my perspective, I think he's completely done. Am I wrong about that? Because I can't imagine that even his low approval rating as it exists, I can't imagine it survives this. This doesn't look like anything that Biden's doing. Compare the way Biden is running things, even if you don't like it, to how Trudeau ran things, right? You could think Biden did a ton of things wrong, and it doesn't come close to what Trudeau is doing to his country right now. It doesn't come close. Not on an emotional level, not on an ethical level, not on a moral level, not on anything. Biden, to me, Biden just looks like somebody who's trying to do the best he can. Whatever is happening in Canada doesn't look like that to me. It looks like a personality problem. It does. It looks like Trudeau painted himself in a corner and can't get out. It doesn't look like a Canada problem. It looks like one person has a problem, and he's making that his personal political problem is becoming the country's problem. Now, this said, there are a number of my critics who said, Scott, don't you understand the importance of keeping things open? To which I say, that's the point. That's the point. The point is that the country has, or at least a segment of the country, has reached the point where they will shoot themselves in their own head before they will give up their freedom. Do you know how the only way that can be communicated? Shoot yourself in your own head. That's the only way anybody's ever going to believe it. And the truckers are doing that. The truckers are calling the bluff like I've never seen a bluff called in my life. They are calling the frickin' bluff. And so when Trudeau is acting like he only has one choice, no, he has another choice, freedom. Freedom's always the choice. Now, that would probably kill more people, but he's got a choice. And I think the public's, here's what I think Trudeau did completely wrong. And I would argue that Biden got this wrong as well, but not as wrong. Trudeau did not respect the opinion on the other side. Big mistake. Big mistake. I think he could have done everything he's doing now and said, I totally hear you. I totally hear you. If you'll get out of the trucks, I'll put you on TV. We'll talk about it on TV. I think your message is important. And I appreciate anybody who's fighting for freedom. He should have been on their side while disagreeing with them. You know what I mean? Had he been more capable, he would have been solidly on the side of the truckers while trying to stop them. And he could have done that. Trump could have done it. Am I wrong? You don't think Trump could have threaded that needle? He could have. Trump could have sided, let's say it had been an American problem. Trump could have sided with the blue-collar workers, and he could have stopped them. Nobody else could have done that. I don't think. I don't think there's anybody else who could have done that. Now, of course, it's speculation because he didn't have to do it. But I don't think anybody could have threaded the needle like that. And this was Trudeau's opportunity to be at least as clever as Trump in managing the room. Trump can manage the room. He doesn't manage the press because that's a different issue. But he can manage the room. Yeah. All right. That is my show for today. I hope you liked it. It's the best thing you'll ever see today. And I'll talk to you tomorrow.